Hello, and welcome to Off the Fence, a podcast where we deconstruct difficult decision making to try to figure out what keeps us stuck, and more importantly, how do we get unstuck? I'm your host, Karen Covey, a former divorce lawyer, mediator, and arbitrator turned coach, author, and entrepreneur. With me today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Eric Blake. Eric is a certified financial planner, professional, and the founder of Blake Wealth Management, specializing in helping women over 55 navigate retirement with clarity and confidence. With more than 25 years of experience, Eric provides strategies to optimize investments, optimize Social Security, create reliable income, and minimize taxes. Inspired by his mother and grandmother's financial journeys, Eric has a personal passion for empowering women to take control of their financial future. He's also the host of the Simply Retirement podcast. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and it's an honor to join you.
Oh my goodness, you're not the only one who's excited. I have been, and like as we were talking about before the show started, I don't even know how we're going to cover everything that needs to be covered in this one episode, but we're going to do our best here. And if need be, I'll bring you back again. But you're here, and I really want to talk to you about Social Security because for so many people, Social Security is just like this black cloud of I know I'm entitled to something, but I have no idea how it works. So let's talk about Social Security retirement benefits. And I think one of the first things that people have questions about um, is when they should start claiming their benefits, right? Because the retirement age seems to keep changing over time. It used to be 65 period full stop, and now it's all different kinds of things. And when you start claiming Social Security benefits determines how much money you get. So, can you explain how all of that works?
Sure. Yeah, I'll get this all done real quick here. So I think the biggest thing you want to start with is when you look at your Social Security statement, you want to figure out number one, what is your full retirement age? And then number two, what is my full retirement age benefit? So the full retirement age, as you said, it has changed. So back in 1983, that's when we have the current rules we have in place where it was increased to age 67. But as many people probably have figured out, it took about 40 years for that to actually happen. So that's where the little bit of the confusion comes in, where it was 66 and then 66 in 2 months and 66 in 4 months and so on and so forth, based on the year that you were born. But basically, right now, it's made relatively simple and just say, okay, if I was born in 1960 or later, my full retirement age is 67, right? And
Okay.
so when we're talking about people in kind of in that retirement planning phase, that's going to apply to most people. Now, once you know, okay, what's my full retirement age? What's my full retirement age benefit? That is going to be the age at which you can start receiving the full benefit with no reduction, right?
Okay.
So if you start early, that's always the key thing to know. If you start earlier than your full retirement age, your benefit is going to get reduced by some percentage, right?
Okay.
So there's all kinds of different rules of thumb. I think, again, as complex as sort of Social Security can be, it really needs to be an individualized decision based on your cash flow needs, based on your other resources. That should guide your decision as to when I'm going to start. Because again, life just sometimes just happens. And so we got to make decisions on the fly sometimes. So you go into it, say, okay, here's when I think I should start. But if life happens and I have to start sooner, so be it. Or if I have the opportunity to delay, my benefit can actually increase beyond my full retirement age to a maximum benefit at age 70. Now, again, keep in mind, this is talking about my personal benefit, my personal retirement benefit. And actually, we'll get into spousal benefits and ex-spousal benefits and all those fun topics as well. But that's kind of the basics of what you want to know.
Okay, so let me ask you a question because let's say I'm a person and I'm approaching that full retirement age. I'm not there. And so my decision is do I start now? Do I start at full retirement? Do I wait until I'm 70? How do I figure out what's going to ultimately put the most dollars in my pocket? Because if I start earlier, I may be getting less money now, but I'll be getting it for longer, assuming I live an average lifespan.
Okay, so that's always the easy question. So if you can tell me when you're going to pass away, I'll give you the exact answer. That's the easiest way to go by. Just tell me when you're going to pass away, and I'll give you the perfect answer. But that's where the trick is, right? So we look at things like longevity. What's my history? What's my family history look like? And what are the other variables in my life? And I'm just looking at other resources. But you can always say, well, the maximum, the very maximum benefit from, again, my own retirement benefit is going to be age 70. But then you get that question, well, what about how long do I have to live before that pays off?
Right.
And for most people, that's going to be, if I wait till 70, it's going to be somewhere in those early 80 years. 81, 82 is going to be what we call the break even point, where the benefits I receive by waiting surpass my lifetime benefits I would have received by starting earlier.
Okay.
Make
Let
sense?
me ask you another question.
Mhm.
If I'm still working, because a lot of people I know are, they're vibrant, they're able to work, they
Mhm.
want to work, or they're in a situation where they have to continue working, right? Whichever bucket they fall in. And so let's say they're still working at age 67, okay? Um, does it make sense for them to start claiming their Social Security then, or does it get reduced because they're still working?
That's a great question. And I actually did a podcast episode on this. Unfortunately, it's not out yet, but it'll be out in a couple of weeks. But on that exact topic, and where do these break-even calculators miss the mark? Right. So it's not just as easy saying, well, if I start here, what's my lifetime benefit? If I start there, what's my lifetime benefit? We need to factor in. That's why it's so individualized based on your specific situation. So working, because as you said, there are so many individuals who continue to work on into their late 60s, early 70s, because what else might they do? Sometimes they don't know what else there might be, what's my life going to look like if I'm not working? But that's really where we start looking at saying, okay, that's where that full retirement age really again becomes so critical. Just for our conversation purposes, we'll assume our full retirement age is 67. If I start receiving Social Security benefits earlier than that age and I'm working, I'm going to be subject to something called the earnings test, right? And that means I can only earn up to a certain amount before my benefit actually could get reduced.
Okay.
But once I've hit full retirement age, that magic age, I can work and can earn as much as I need to or want to with no impact on my Social Security benefits.
Okay, so let me stop you. I want to make sure
Yep.
that I understand this. So let's
Yes.
say I'm 67 years old. I'm at full retirement age. I'm not at 70. I'm not the later, but
Right.
I can start claiming Social Security. And let's say I'm earning $100,000 a year. Is there any reason why I would not want to claim Social Security if I could?
Again, it's one of those things where you have to think about how do I think emotionally about my finances? So if I were to tell you, okay, if I just delay 3 more years, you're going to get a guaranteed 24% increase in my benefit for the rest of my life, guaranteed. And that income's also actually going to increase with inflation. Would that make you feel better? Would that help you sleep better at night knowing that? And that's the part that a lot of people don't necessarily think about is saying, okay, if my full retirement age benefit is 3,000 and I wait 3 more years, that means that benefit's going to be something closer to maybe 3,800 guaranteed for the rest of my life.
Okay, let's say I'm going to change the scenario. Let's say I
Mhm.
am 70, right? So that I'm at the outside. Social Security is never going to get better than that, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I'm 70 years old. Is there any reason for me not to claim Social Security if I'm still working? Let's say I'm making $200,000 a year. Will my Social Security get reduced? Will I get dinged for that? Does it make sense?
The only reason, so there's almost very, very few situations where you wouldn't apply at 70 because again, there's no benefit to you of waiting at that point. The only reasons, I'll give you just a couple of minor reasons. Hopefully this doesn't muddy the waters too much, but the only reasons why you might still delay is for tax planning purposes. So just a quick example to say, okay, I turned 70 in July, but I've got a full year of salary coming for that year. Well, if I'm going to be in a higher tax bracket, that might mean I can actually use a strategy, a very little known strategy of saying I can wait and receive retroactive benefits of up to 6 months. So I might say I'm going to wait till January, file for my benefit retroactively to my 70th birthday so that my benefits don't actually kick in until January because now I've retired, I'm in a lower tax bracket, I'm in a better circumstance from that standpoint. That's the
That
only
makes
very few reasons why that would make sense. But for the most part, if you once you hit 70, for the majority of people, you apply and you move forward from there.
That makes so much sense because for those listening, and tell me if I'm right, you pay income tax on the year you receive the income. So even if it's for retroactive benefits, let's say for benefits in 2025. If you don't get the money in your hand till 2026, it's 2026
Right.
income, right?
Exactly. So like if I'm making 150,000 a year in 2025, I might not want to start that. Might not want to add extra income to that because it might push me into a higher tax bracket. This year, we also have the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which has an additional age 65 plus deduction of 6,000. What if that extra Social Security income pushes me above that threshold? Now I lost $6,000 in deduction and this new deduction that we have available for age 65 plus. So that's really where, again, all these, you always talk about, I talk about this retirement income puzzle. You got all these different pieces. You got IRA accounts and 401ks and Social Security and taxes. You got all these different things. How do you start putting those pieces together in a way that makes sense for you? And that's really the key to this, is really making sure you look at your situation, figure out what the optimal strategies are for you, or consult with a financial advisor that has experience in this phase of life, because not all advisors do. So you got to be sure, if you're going to ask for advice, you're going to ask for guidance, make sure you're asking these types of questions. Okay, what's your familiarity with Social Security rules, specifically for divorce circumstances or widow circumstances? How much experience do you have? Do you have somebody? Do you have a client I might be able to talk to about, their experiences working with you? Those types of things.
I really love that. And when you're talking about the context of divorce, what further complicates things, as you know, is that often one spouse was the stay-at-home spouse.
Yes.
And so they don't have the same level of retirement benefit from Social Security due to them, but they may be eligible for a spousal to claim under their spouse and get the spousal
Yes.
benefit. Can you explain what's the spousal benefit in Social Security and how does that work?
So I think that one of the key things is you always got to distinguish between, when you hear the word spousal, you got to distinguish between a spousal benefit, which is based on the higher earner's record, and a survivor benefit. So many people get those confused. Okay.
Okay.
So let's talk about specifically about spousal benefits and ex-spousal benefits. So while we'll assume the spouse or the ex-spouse is still alive to make it easy. Okay. So if I don't have enough earnings on my own record to receive my own retirement benefit, I might be consider, as you said, applying for a spousal or ex-spousal benefit. That's going to be a maximum of 50% of my ex-spouse or spouse's full retirement age benefit. Again, you hear me say that full retirement age. That's a key date, key number. It's up to 50% of the spouse's or ex-spouse's full retirement age benefit, right? And
Okay.
if you remember, I talked about earlier, again, we'll just keep with our 67 theme of being full retirement age being 67. I talked about earlier, anytime I apply for any benefit before my full retirement age, my benefit is going to get reduced, whether it's my own or that spousal benefit.
Okay.
So 50%, a lot of people are familiar with that 50%,
Right.
but they think it's no matter what. It's not. It's 50% once I've reached full retirement age. Once you, as the lower earning spouse, reaches full retirement age, that's the 50% mark. If I start at 62, it's going to be closer to about 33%, depending, again, your year of birth. So that's a
Okay.
significant decline. Again, using a
Yeah.
easy $3,000 a month benefit is my ex-spouse or spouse's full retirement age benefit. Half of that is 1,500. 32% of that's about $1,000, right?
Yikes. All right. So that's spousal benefit. What's the survivor benefit?
Survivor benefit is going to be, and again, I want to make sure, actually, I'm sure we'll get into the rules around X's because that is going to be critical to what our conversation here. But a survivor benefit basically says if my spouse or even ex-spouse, many people are actually eligible for an ex-spousal survivor benefit. That means I'm going to be able to receive 100% of what they were receiving at the time they passed or what they would have been eligible for at their full retirement age if they hadn't started yet.
Wow. Okay. So
100%. Yeah.
that's amazing. So, all right. But what happens if, um, let's say, and we'll get into the rules of divorce in a second, but
Mhm.
let's say I'm claiming under my spouse's benefit, so I'm getting 50% of what he is getting. And let's say we're all at full retirement age. So just make it simple,
Yes.
right? Okay. We're all at full retirement age. He's getting $3,000 a month. I'm getting 1,500 a month because I'm getting half of his. He dies. Am I stuck with the 1,500 or can I now apply for his full 3,000 because he died?
You're going to be able to apply for the full 3,000 Yours goes away. Now, keep in mind, that's one of the things once one of the spouses pass away, the lower benefit goes away completely. It's gone. You
Okay.
get to keep the higher of those two benefits. So in this case, 3,000 a month. So you get to receive that $3,000 a month going forward as the
And
survivor benefit.
and to get it, I'm assuming, but I don't want to assume, do I have to apply for it or does Social Security just say, "Hey, here's what you get, congratulations, you got a raise."
That is a great question. And one of the most confusing aspects of planning is that if I'm already receiving a benefit based on my spouse's record, in many cases, you'll automatically get the increase to the survivor benefit because I'm already on their record. However, if I'm on my own benefit, let's say instead you're receiving $2,000 a month, he's receiving $3,000 a month, but your 2,000 is your own personal retirement benefit, and he passes away, to get the 3,000, you have to apply for the survivor benefit. You have to go in, you actually have to schedule an appointment. It can be a phone appointment, but you have to schedule an appointment. It's not one of those things you can do online. You got to schedule an appointment, you got to apply to in order to start receiving that survivor benefit.
I love this because I mean, I can see how people, if you don't know the rules, how would you know that you're supposed to do this? And then you just lose money, right? Let me
Absolutely.
let me ask you this. Let's say I'm a widow now. My spouse passed away a year ago, and I'm claiming under my income. So I could have been entitled to, in your scenario, an extra $1,000 a month, right? I didn't get it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I just listened to this podcast, and now I know I can get it, and I apply. Does it go retroactive? Can I get what I
You
did?
get the 6 months. You get the six
That's
month
it.
retroactive benefits. Yeah. Now, again, not trying to muddy the waters too much, but there's this big law that passed right at the beginning of 2024 called the Social Security Fairness Act. There was something that used to be called the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. These were reduction of your benefits because of having a pension covered under a non-Social Security covered position. So think a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So many districts or
Right.
states have teachers that don't contribute to Social Security. They receive a pension from their employment. Well, the Social Security Fairness Act basically eliminated the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. They're gone, no longer a
Okay.
thing. But again, the windfall elimination provision reduced my own personal benefit if I had a pension outside of Social Security, but the government pension offset impacted benefits I was receiving off of somebody else, off of my spouse. 83% of the individuals affected by the government pension offset before it was eliminated were women. What, right? Because there's a couple of key reasons for that. One is obviously, look at the percentage of teachers that are out there that are women. That's one.
Right.
But I think maybe even as big of a factor is longevity, women living longer. Because again, if the government pension offset impacts benefits you could receive based on a spouse, that means spousal and ex spousal benefits. That means survivor benefits. So there were people who had pensions outside of Social Security that could not receive their husband's survivor benefit because their pension was too high, right? That has been
That's
eliminated.
not right.
I don't, my wife was a teacher for 25 years. I'm right there with you. But again, that's been eliminated. But you think about people teachers or women that may have retired 10 years ago, their husband passed away 5 years ago. They may not have any idea that this Social Security and Fairness Act thing is out there. So in those cases, you actually could go retroactive back to January 1, but you got to know that you're eligible so that you can go back and apply for benefits. Even in many cases, I've heard stories of the Social Security Administration saying, hey, don't even apply because you're not going to get anything. Well,
What?
yeah, right. If you never applied, you're not in the system. You got to go back and apply. You got to go back and get that money. If you applied, but then it was eliminated because you made too much money, but you did apply, they're supposed to know you're there. They're supposed to say, okay, we're going to go back and look at all these different people who applied but didn't get benefits. And now you should be getting those benefits.
Okay, but this is the government we're talking about, right? And my faith in them just looking and going, "Oh, hey, we should be giving you money," is not good. I mean, does it make sense if you're in that circumstance? Can it hurt if you just go apply anyway and say, "Hey, now I'm entitled to something"?
But you got to know about it first. And that's why we do these podcasts and getting this information out there is so critical because so many people, I'm sure, still don't know that this is a thing. But you got to know about it first. So you got to get educated in some way. You got to hear it on a podcast. You got to read it on a news article. You got to find out And then, yes, absolutely, go back to Social Security Administration and say, hey, am I eligible? Is this something I could receive benefits for? Because this is in many cases, this is a true life changer for so many women that all of a sudden now they're eligible for a survivor benefit from a husband that passed away 20 years ago. But
Yeah.
because they had this pension, they weren't getting anything. Now they can get that money and get lump sums and get all, yeah. So it was the retroactive benefit back to January 1, 2024. These are all paid out as lump sums in the middle of this year, of this past around March, April of this year.
Wow.
But you had to be, number one, you had to be eligible and you had to make sure you're in the system, or you had to go back and apply. So
Okay.
again, if women knew about it, it is a life changer. To add 2,000, 2,500, $3,000 a month in extra income in a situation where they might have been really struggling. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of women that said, this is just going to change my life. And I spent
Yeah.
a lot of time on this in our Facebook group and different places of just saying, I just got to get this information out there.
Wow. All right, let's shift a little bit and talk about the rules surrounding divorce, because I think that's another thing that people don't understand, and they don't know what the rules are. They think, okay, if I'm divorcing my spouse, um, am I entitled to a survivor benefit or to his um, to any kind of a benefit to claim through
Right.
him, a spousal benefit?
Yep. So I'm going to give you two key numbers. If you just take nothing else from this conversation, full retirement age, find out what your full retirement age is. And number two, if you have been divorced, may get divorced, will get divorced, whatever the case is, remember 10 years. 10 years is the magic number. So if I was married for at least 10 years, and it is exactly 10 years, it's not 9 years and 10 months or anything else. It's 10 years. The and you will have to prove marriage certificate, divorce decree. Has to be 10 years exactly or more, right? If that's the case, you are eligible, or you're potentially eligible for ex-spousal benefits and or ex-spouse survivor benefits, right? That's the key numbers, that 10 years. Then we start getting into age and some other variables there that we'll talk, I'm happy to talk through, but that 10-year mark is going to be the key one.
Okay, let's say that I've been married for more than 10 years, am now divorced. I now reach my full retirement age, but I'm remarried. Can I claim under my first spouse?
If you're remarried, you are no longer eligible for ex-spousal benefits off of a previous spouse. Okay. And again,
Okay.
that's the max 50% benefit. So again, this is critical to distinguish between ex-spousal benefits and survivor benefits, right? It's critical to distinguish between those. If I remarry at any point, I am no longer eligible for ex-spousal benefits that up to 50% amount of a
Uh-huh.
previous spouse.
What
That's
about
cut
survivor
and dry.
benefits?
Survivor benefits, that's the tricky one. I can remarry, but I cannot remarry before the age of 60. So if I remarry and I remarry after the age of 60 and a previous spouse has passed away, I am still eligible for survivor benefits, assuming that marriage lasted at least 10 years.
Okay. I don't know. I'm thinking of this like a law school final exam, right? All changing all the variables. And
Yep.
so let's say that I got married young. I got married to, I was in my
This is
20s,
a good one.
got married, yeah. And I stayed married for a dozen years. We got divorced. Then my spouse went on to marry second wife, and they stayed married for more than 10 years and got divorced. And I am now full retirement age, fast forward in time, right? I am now full retirement age. Can I claim on my spouse's benefit, the spousal benefit of 50%? I'm not remarried. I'm full retirement age, but his second wife is claiming too. Does it matter?
Does not matter. As long as that 10-year mark has been reached, it could be three, four, these days we might have three, four, five marriages floating around out there somewhere, right? As long as it lasted 10 years, I have not remarried at any point. Now, also, we get into a couple of the other things that you have to be aware of, and that is the age, because again, we're talking about a benefit based on a retirement benefit, right? So I
Hmm.
have to be at least 62 to
Okay.
file for ex-spousal benefits, the 50% benefit. I have to be at least 62. My ex-spouse has to be at least 62. Now, here's the difference between ex-spouse and spousal options. For ex-spousal benefits, it does not matter if my ex-spouse has filed or not. For spousal benefits, it does. So I can't actually file for spousal benefits unless my spouse, my higher earning husband, has filed for his own benefit. But ex spousal benefits, that's not the case. He just has to be 62. I have to be 62. The divorce has to happen at least 2 years ago. And if I
Okay.
choose, I can then file for my ex spousal benefits that up to 50%. Keeping in mind, as always, if you do it before full retirement age, it's going to be reduced. But if you wait until full retirement age, you're going to get 50% of his full retirement age benefit.
Okay. Let's go back to that scenario again where guy has we're gonna keep it simple. He only had two wives. Okay. But
Okay.
now he's died. And both of the wives, can each one of the wives claim the survivor benefit? So each one of them gets his full retirement benefit?
Well, I did. So are we saying he's divorced from both wives? Just to clarify, just so we keep the picture as clear as possible. So just for our purposes for now, let's assume he divorced both, right?
Okay.
As long as neither one of them married before the age of 60, remarried before the age of 60, yes,
Okay.
both spouses could receive survivor benefits based on the same guy.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's say this. Let's say um that somebody wants to claim benefits based on their ex-spouse's income, and they remarry at age 62, but they're not eligible for full retirement. They claim at 67. Does it matter that they're remarried then?
Only for survivor benefits. Okay, so for survivor benefits, you have to, survivor benefits are, again, that's why we got to keep them separated. So if I remarry after 60, I'm still eligible for survivor benefits. If I remarry at any point, I'm no longer eligible for ex-spousal benefits at all,
Okay, what if I
unless I get
say
remarried or my current husband passes away.
that's what I was going to ask. Like,
Yeah.
let's say I get remarried and then I either divorce again or my second husband dies. But at the time I'm applying for benefits, I have two past husbands but no current husband.
You can
Can
apply for 50% of whichever one of those is greater.
Oh wow. That's
Right.
kind of cool.
So yeah, so just I would always keep my for ex-spousal benefits, you have to be unmarried at the time to apply. That's kind of cut and dry. You cannot be married and apply for spousal benefits based on an ex-spouse's record that he's still
Okay.
alive.
So let's say this. Let's say I am kind of a hot retiree almost, but I'm still working. So I hit 67 and I'm dating somebody. Would it make sense for me to apply for the Social Security benefits based on my first husband's record? And then if I'm going to marry guy number two, wait until after that? Does it matter if I'm already receiving the benefits, can I remarry then?
So again, are we talking ex-spousal benefits or are we talking survivor benefits?
Ex-spousal benefits.
As soon as you remarry, those benefits off an ex-spouse stop.
Ah, that's interesting to know
Yeah.
too.
Now, it doesn't mean you couldn't then apply for spousal benefits once you've been married for a year. Now I could apply for spousal benefits based on my new spouse. So
Okay.
again, all these different moving parts, it's all, you got to understand your age, you got to understand all these different variables. And that's why, again, I will tell you that when you're talking to a financial advisor, you got to make sure they are familiar with this phase of life because it's just different than, again, as we're talking about all these decisions about a 65, 67-year-old. These are not the same decisions the 37-year-old is making. So
Oh yeah.
if you're telling me a financial advisor can be a specialist in the 37-year-old and then also be a specialist in this stuff, I don't believe you.
Yeah, there is a lot here. And what I'm gathering from you, like the 2024 changes, like it's evolving. It's changing and it's something that I would think a financial advisor has got to be keeping up with or they're not going
Yeah.
to be accurate.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's one of the things I encourage our prospective clients. Again, we work primarily with women. Ask me these questions. How do you keep up with the changing tax laws? What do you do to make sure you're staying on top of these, that you're understanding Social Security and taxes and distribution rules and Secure Act and Social Security Fairness Act and OBBBA and what are you doing to keep up with all this? Ask that question. If you're considering hiring a financial advisor, please feel empowered to ask those questions because that's the only way you're going to get the right person for your situation is if you ask those questions.
Yeah, because a lot of people, when they start asking the questions in the context of divorce, is when they finally got a settlement proposal and they're trying to evaluate, am I better with proposal A or B or C, right?
Right.
Which one is going to put the most dollars in my pocket? And what I'm hearing you say is that if you're later in life, which I mean, gray divorce is the biggest thing ever in
Right.
our history right now. And so if you're at age 50 or above and you're trying to figure out what your future looks like in terms of dollars in your pocket and Social Security and retirement and all those things, you need to talk with somebody who actually knows the rules of Social Security, or you're not going to make the right decision.
Right. And that's a key because, as you know, CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analysts, are hugely important in their role. But depending on whether they're supposed to be that objective third party where we're trying to break all the assets down and figure out, what's a fair split, that may not necessarily tell you, well, what is my income scenario going to be looking like once this is all said and done? Now, Social Security being as bad a rap as Social Security gets, everybody talks about, well, it's going to run dry. So what difference does it make? I'll start earlier, I'll start later, I'll start whenever, and they'll use those different reasons as reason to bash Social Security. Whatever you think about Social Security, for most people, it is the single source of lifetime guaranteed income that increases every single year based on inflation, right? So
Okay.
the decisions you make around that income are critical. And again, no matter what you're thinking of is about Social Security, how bad it is, how good it is, whatever it might be, there's something about this source of guaranteed again for the most people. And there's obviously people who have enough money that it just doesn't really matter. But that's not most people. Most people, the decisions they're making around Social Security are a huge component of their retirement income strategy. Now, actually, as you also know, you can't negotiate Social Security, but
Right.
as you're trying to make these critical decisions about splitting assets and what assets I'm going to get over here, and am I getting IRA assets versus taxable assets, and all these different things that are going to come into play, knowing what your income situation is going to look like really becomes critical when we say, okay, well, if I'm only going to get 50% of his benefit once I'm eligible, does that lean us towards having to figure out where else am I going to get my income? Does that mean I need spousal support on top of whatever the asset split is, or am I going to get enough assets to provide a reasonable lifestyle? So all those types of things come into play. And again, so whatever you're thinking about, whatever your negative or positive thoughts about Social Security are, it really still has to be part of the equation.
100%. And you mentioned something, and I know what you're talking about, but I'm not sure that everyone out there listening does. So for those of the people who are listening, you said Social Security is not negotiable. What do you mean by that?
So I mean that the Social Security, you can't say, well, I want you to give me more, I want you to give me 75% of your benefit instead of 50%. You can't do that. The rules of Social Security are what the rules of Social Security are. You just got to make decisions, an educated decision on the other stuff, the assets, any other income, pension income, whatever else is out there that's going to be part of this divorce settlement. How does Social Security fit in with that? How do the rules of Social Security going to fit into that to help me make a better decision, hopefully, on that other stuff, knowing what my options are going to be with Social Security?
Right. So if somebody, and I've seen the cases where the spouses are so angry with each other. I mean, the higher earner's just like, no, I don't want you getting half of my benefit. And it's not their choice, right?
It is
It's going
not.
to
It is
happen no
absolutely.
matter
They don't even
what.
have to know, honestly. I mean, yeah, as long as you can show documentation, they would never know. Like your example of you might have three, four wives. They may know you don't have to tell them that you're filing based on their record because you're
Yeah.
just eligible for. You just go to the Social Security Administration, you file, do what you got to do.
Do they get notified? Does the higher earner or the
Mm-mm.
ex-spouse get notified? No.
Nope.
Okay.
Now,
So
again, you got to provide the documentation, your divorce decree, your marriage certificate, all that stuff. As long as you can verify that information, they don't have to have, they have no idea.
let me ask you that brings up sort of the practical question, which is when you go to apply, let's say you are applying based on your ex-spouse's benefit level, besides a marriage certificate and a divorce decree, what else are you going to have to bring to prove that so that people know what documentation to save?
That's really it. Those are the
That's it?
two key pieces of information. Yeah. Divorce
Okay.
decree and marriage certificate. As long as you can document that and it shows the dates, all that good stuff, you're good to go.
So you don't need like tax returns or
Mm-mm.
anything like that.
Yeah, because we're all in the system. So, so you're in there. And so yeah, it's the divorce decree and the marriage certificate are the key documents that you want to make sure you've got access to.
Okay, so this is so fascinating, and there's so much more, and we're already running up to time. I'm probably going to have you back again, but I know that you have like incredible resources for people who are facing these problems and trying to figure this out. Can you tell the audience about what you've got for them?
Absolutely. So I'm going to share a link. I'm going to provide this to you, and I think I may have already gotten it to you, but if not, I'll make sure you get it. This is our complete guide to women's Social Security success. And this is our most popular, our six most popular guides and checklist on Social Security. Helps you determine what my eligibility is for spousal benefit, and ex-spousal benefits, and survivor benefits, and circumstances that you might not be aware of around what other factors could reduce my benefits. And if you go to women's social security guide.com, all one word, women's
Mhm.
social security guide.com, you can go there, you can download this free resource. Again, it's got checklists, got everything you'll want to look at to help determine what you're eligible for and how to make some of these critical decisions. And it's even our quick reference guide is the very first document on there, full retirement age numbers, reduction percentages of benefits that you want to be aware of. That we talked about the 50% versus the 32.5%. All that is in there. So you can have quick reference to see that, plus the different guides that'll walk you through your potential eligibility options.
Wow, this is so much. But what if somebody, even with your guide, they're like, I don't know, I need help. Where can they find you? Because we'll link to all the guides and everything in the show notes. Where can they find you?
So I'll give you, first of all, our website, blakewealthmanagement.com. That's where we do that's our advisory practice. And again, our primary focus is on women. You'll see right at the top of the page, retirement planning for women over 55. That's our primary focus. And just so we've addressed it, you'll scroll a little bit farther that says, yes, we do work with couples, but it is critical that both spouses are part of the planning process. We will not just say the husband comes in and the wife chooses to come in from time to time. Both spouses must be involved. So that would be option one. Option two is our podcast, the simplyretirementpodcast.com. I cover all these different topics. You can go in if you want to hear me talking about the Social Security Fairness Act or the top 5 things all women need to know about Social Security, the top 5 questions on Social Security survivor benefits, all that is there. That's our website for the podcast. We've done 80 something episodes, and it's probably a fourth of those are on Social Security because it's such a critical topic. And I think it's one of those things, again, to make the best decisions possible in divorce circumstances or widowed circumstances. Understanding Social Security is such a critical component.
Right. I mean, it's critical and it's complicated. So
Way
those
more
two aren't
complicated than it needs to be.
yeah, those two are not a good mix. So, for those of you who are listening, I highly encourage you to check out Eric's website, get all the downloadables. If you're, I mean, at what point do people need to start thinking about this? Age 50?
I think you want to start thinking about it as early as possible, but I encourage you, when you're starting to plan, full retirement age. We talked about that a lot in this episode. Know what your
Hmm.
full retirement age benefit and just use that as your starting point. Again, then as
Okay.
life happens, you can adjust. If I say, hey, for whatever reason, I got to start at 62, or, I think I'd rather wait till 70, start as reasonably early as possible, know your full retirement age benefit estimate, and then kind of base things off of that.
Wow. Eric, thank you so much for this. I mean, my head is a little bit exploding at the moment,
I'm sure. Yeah.
but in a good way. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom with us, with the listeners.
It was an honor.
So, and for those of you who are out there watching or listening, if you enjoyed today's episode, if you want to hear more episodes just like it, and especially if you want us to bring Eric back, do me a big favor. Give this episode a thumbs up. Like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I look forward to talking with you all again next time. The content discussed in this podcast is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. The commentary in this podcast episode reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of Blake Wealth Management. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by Blake Wealth Management or RFG Advisory or the performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Advisory services are offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Blake Wealth Management and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.